Now, Prince Harry has dominated headlines over the last week following a very revealing interview with the BBC, which was recorded and aired just hours after he lost his legal battle concerning the level of security that he receives when he's here in the UK. Now, Sarah, he did this interview clearly in the heat of the moment.
Yes.
Do you think that, before we get into what he said and how it was said, that's something he might come to regret? Would a night's sleep done him any kind of favours in terms of what we heard and what was said?
Well, I don't know, because he did issue a statement afterwards, which had been carefully thought through and pen put to paper with very similar sentiments. But I agree with you, in the aftermath, just after having lost his Court of Appeal hearing, he looked broken, totally drained, emotional, angry, bitter. And I felt that, you know, we were watching something play out that needed to play out behind closed doors, particularly when he was talking about his father. You got the sense, and saying, well, you know, he doesn't speak to me, you got the sense that he...
Also saying he doesn't know how long he has left.
He doesn't know how long he has left.
You could say that of anybody.
Yeah.
But to say it about somebody that we know is undergoing cancer treatment right now...
That was one of the most shocking things to come out of this, because either that is...
I mean, it is
him...
also a fair comment in defence of Harry saying that. He doesn't know how much longer. If he has no access to him and isn't talking to him, it is it's a fact, and
well,
it's
it
a fair
depends
comment.
how you read it, doesn't it? Does he have more knowledge than we do, and therefore it's going contrary to the narrative that Buckingham Palace are very keen for us to hear, which is everything's going in the right direction, in which case it's a breach, a monumental breach of privacy of his father. More likely, though, is the fact that he just doesn't know, because he's not speaking to them. He is being kept
I think that's
in the
what
dark.
he was trying to say.
And then what you have is someone who seems to feel that the only way in which he can get a message across to his family is through the media, the very media that he loathes. And so it's very uncomfortable to watch this.
But do you not concede that he landed some very salient and pertinent points that maybe got lost with some of the emotion and the disappointment that he conveyed, but that fundamentally he made a very good case for himself? Why does a Prime Minister who served for 48 days get a higher level of security than he does?
Well, it was such mixed messaging, I thought, and I think when you understand that he had agreed 10 minutes with the BBC, went on for more than 30, was using it as like a therapy session, I thought.
Not a lot of challenge, not a lot of pushback.
Well, I think that is a major problem for the Palace, because and the BBC to recognise that there wasn't much pushback. I mean, when you're using language such as a good old-fashioned establishment stitch-up, and that is not being challenged, and the BBC have apologised for that being repeated on the Today programme the day later, but during the interview, when that wasn't challenged, I think is a major, major issue for the BBC, and will be an issue for the Palace. I think Harry will come to monumentally regret this interview.
Do you think? Or is he just
no,
past it and
absolutely.
just thinks, do you know what?
I think he will,
I'm going to put it all out there now.
Well, I think there will be immense sadness from the royal family and the palace that he had mentioned his father in such terms. And I understand what you're saying, that and Sarah, about it depends which way it's dissected or understood. But by using language such as that, I think is incredibly damaging for his relationship with his father and his brother. And I think when you're saying he did land some pertinent points, they were lost. I mean, if he'd said, this is the issue for my family, which in fairness he did, it is absolutely about a threat to life. It is absolutely about security. This is not the reason his father is not talking to him. His father and his brother are not talking to him, as other members of the royal family, is because, as he said, they will never forgive him for writing a book. They won't forgive him for airing his dirty laundry on Oprah or Netflix. I mean, he has made some catastrophic errors in his dealing with the royal family. And why should they talk to him? Because anything they do say will end up on a television interview or in the papers that, like you said, that he loathes so much.
But surely they do have an obligation and a duty of care to keep him and his family safe.
I don't disagree with that. I think that this whole situation should have been avoided. I do feel for Harry. I think he has been absolutely consumed by this. There, of course, is a school of thought to say listen, you've gone off and you've earned tens of millions of pounds in the private sector. You cannot have it both ways. Again, it's been absolutely lost by what he's just spilling his heart out by saying, oh, yeah, they don't talk to me. This is the issue with my family. If he'd just kept it about security, I think it would have been a lot more balanced on his part.
But this is the thing, is that I don't think he can separate the issues with his family from the issues with security, because it's all tied up. It is all the same thing. The reason why he is in the position he is now is because of the family, because he feels that they are instrumental in taking away that security from his nuclear family, from his immediate family. I do agree that it was a very, very emotional interview. Like you said, Sarah, he was clearly broken. He was clearly distressed. You can see the toll that this has taken on him over the past 5 years. But there was also an element of him saying lots of the quiet parts out loud. And maybe he didn't deliver it in the best way, but he made some very, very good points in that
What were the
interview.
standouts for you, Afia?
I mean, for me, definitely talking about the king in the way he did, saying he didn't know how long he has to live, saying that there's dark forces at work within the family, talking about history repeating itself, obviously he's talking about what happened to his mother, Princess Diana. He doesn't want that to happen to himself, his wife, his children. Repeating he doesn't see any time where he would come back to the United Kingdom with his family. What does that mean for his children and their relationship with that side of the family? I think that's a huge tragedy in all this as well.
Non-existent. It would be absolutely non-existent.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the spokesman for the palace addressed Harry's comments to the BBC as stating all of these issues have been examined repeatedly and meticulously by the courts with the same conclusion reached on each occasion. And we have to remember that this is the second time this has been put before a court.
Yeah, I mean, and he can go to the Supreme Court with this. I think that's very unlikely. And he said himself, what's the point in fighting anymore? I mean, I thought he looked absolutely bereft. I also think he thought he would win that case.
Yes. Yeah,
and this is why it was a last-minute decision to do this interview with the BBC. My understanding is they'd been asking for an interview for some time. His people had said no. And then it was an emotive decision. I did think Harry, was across the detail. He did actually say, this is the reason that this is happening. This is these are the anomalies, such as former prime ministers and Liz Truss being in the office for 40-odd days. But when you're saying, my father could stop this at any moment, I mean, like Buckingham Palace says, that he can't get involved. I mean, Harry is suing His Majesty's government.
He did go on to say by stepping aside and letting the board do their business.
That is not going to happen. I mean,
but then he has a problem with the royal household representation on RAVEC, the committee that decides this security. And the point he made, which I didn't know before, was that his only representation on the RAVEC committee was the royal household.
And still continues to be.
And still continues to be. So the only way he can get his point across to the committee is via those courtiers that he has so little trust in.
Yeah, and they're not in his favour at all. So therefore, he has no representation on that committee whatsoever, like you so rightly said. So how is it ever going to be a balanced view if he doesn't have that representation there?
But it was mixed in the sense that he was saying, my father could sort this out. Oh, but he needs to stand back and let the experts do it. But I don't trust the experts. And I think that's where we got into a bit of a muddle.
He also pointed out that this is new territory, right? Yes, there is precedent, which he harked back to say that precedent will tell you that other people who have given less and have been threatened less have received more. But there isn't a direct comparable. So it is trying to template something entirely from scratch.
And this is where we have a problem because, it's the modernisation of these age-old institutions just cannot, for some reason, the wheels can't get into motion to do that. And I don't understand why. And I also think, we have to take into consideration the threats that Liz Truss may face and the threats that Prince Harry may face and the threats that Sir Keir Starmer may face are going to be different. Prince Harry has been threatened by Al-Qaeda, by neo-Nazis that are now in prison. Those threats, I'm pretty sure, are going to be different from what Liz Truss has. And why are they not being taken into consideration? They absolutely should be. I mean, you've got people who are in prison for making neo-Nazi threats against Prince Harry, against Prince Archie. He's not making up. These threats are real. They exist. And why are they not being taken into consideration?
It's incredible that we have reached this situation.
Yeah. Isn't it?
If it didn't exist, nobody would have said, why is he getting taxpayer-funded security? I mean, you'd be very unfair to be saying that because, I mean, he actually shot down the estimates that have been put out. He's saying, 20 million that's been quoted in the press. He's saying it was 18, 19 times less than that.
Yeah.
So I felt very sorry for him. He's obviously in a bind and just can't compute what's going on. But I think you talk about duty of care. There should be a duty of care to him. Who are his people putting him up to this? Why was Meghan not there saying, you need to take the sting out of this? It's not good for business anyway. If he wants to be hired by some of the corporate giants and he's just coming across as bitter and twisted and the messaging's being all missed, I think. I feel sorry for him.
Yeah, in terms of practising well-being and therapy, and I mean, I think the first thing anybody that was versed in that would say is...
And I think
take a breath, take a beat.
Duty of care to him as well, regardless of what's happened. I definitely think.
He did talk in the same interview about his hope of reconciliation, that life is too short. What are the chances?
I mean, absolutely not in the near future.
A lot less now than they were before that interview as well.
Oh, God.
I think he's set back any hopes of reconciliation considerably. He'd been pretty quiet and not been talking publicly about the family, family gripes and his family, which was purposeful.
Working.
And it felt as if things were starting to move in the right direction. And then this has
Did he
just
need
put
to
it
do
all
that
back.
interview? Would a statement have sufficed?
A statement would have been far better.
But I also think that this is Harry's way of communicating. I think you nailed it, Sarah, when you said that if he feels that he can't speak to his brother or his father, he probably feels that this is his way of communicating with them, right?
Well, we're in like a Thomas Markle situation now, aren't we? Where the only vehicle he feels he has. And look how damaging that has been. I mean, you look at the situation that has evolved. Meghan not speaking to her father, him not speaking to his. I mean, it's an absolute mess. And I don't think it's going to get any better because, William certainly doesn't trust him. The King is keeping him at arm's length for now, and you can unfortunately see why.